Good afternoon, everybody. Let's talk about the prophetic word again today. The title of this video is going to be, interestingly enough, called The Promised Land. The Promised Land. Now, before the children of Israel entered the Promised Land, what did they experience? They first experienced Egypt, and then the Red Sea. They crossed the Red Sea. Then they went into the desert for 40 years. And then they crossed the Jordan after the desert, and then entered the Promised Land. But there are certain characteristics of the Promised Land, like the other places that they experienced. They entered into the Promised Land with a couple characteristics. You know, like the old phrase, the old saying is, there's good news and there's bad news. Well, the good news is God will lead you, and His leading always is intended, and His purpose is for you to succeed, to be more than a conqueror as you enter the Promised Land. Well, why do you need to be more than a conqueror? It sounds like a contradiction, doesn't it? When you enter the Promised Land, or the promises that God has given you specifically, I specifically, it seems like you don't need to be a conqueror of anything. You just need to go enjoy it, right? Well, this is the bad news. There's good news and there's bad news, but all beneficial, really all good. The bad news, or the not so welcoming but very true thing that needs to be mentioned about being in the Promised Land, is that you will fight. You will have to fight. You have to recognize battles for what they are. You will have to recognize the spiritual warfare that's going on around you as you enjoy the promises that God gives you, right? As God gives to me. You cannot ignore those things. You cannot be in that place, this place, or that place, and think that you're not going to have a fight. So that's really something to recognize today, and something to remember, that God will do it for you. You will go into promises that He has already prepared for you. Cisterns or wells dug, houses built, a lot of things that will become very easy, not like Egypt and the desert. But it will become easy. It'll come to you easier. But you need to understand that there's also a fight. You have to fight in it while you experience it, and for it. But you're not alone. You don't do it by yourself. That's why you go through the other seasons, to learn how to fight in those and walk with God, so that when you enter into promises, the Promised Land, you recognize the evil and the good. You recognize the benefit of the promises and the things that linger around promises that you don't need to attach to your promises. Remember that today. God bless you guys.